Thursday night, Anaheim Ducks captain Ryan Getzlaf, in the heat of a Game 4 with the Predators, threw out another version, similarly offensive word to the LGBTQ community. And instead of dissection, Getzlaf was upset that he was being challenged on it, saying, quote, "It's tough to see somebody refer to it as homophobic. I didn't mean it for it in that manner in any way." The NHL seemed to agree, fining Getzlaf $10,000, the maximum permitted under the CBA, for using what the league labeled obscene and profane or abusive language. Now, Mark Spector posted a column to Sportsnet.ca, very good one, saying that the league chickened out on Getzlaf, ostensibly labeling it a cuss word. Do you think the league chickened out on this?
Yeah, I do. I do, Tim. I think that they avoided that discussion. I'm not sure why they avoided that discussion. You know, we're very tuned into it right now because of the Pilar incident, which is fresh because of the Yanel Escobar incident, right. You know, and because of previous things in hockey as well. So it's not like we haven't had this discussion before. But I think to kind of split hairs about the meaning of the word and how it's intended, it's obviously, nor was, you know, Pilar didn't point to someone and use that word directly as a homophobic slur, but he used a word that is a homophobic slur in that situation.
Right.
And words have weight and meaning. You know, and it doesn't, you know, the intent in how you use it does not change the weight and meaning and history of a word. And our feelings about how those words are used evolve over time.
Right.
That's not a bad thing that the species continues to evolve. And I think, you know, in both these cases, it's the idea of separating and turning it into an us versus them, that it hurts somebody else. So we have,
right.
Until you start thinking about us as all of us, as a
right.
community, that it's about, that this is something that hurts us, that hurts our community, that hurts mothers and fathers and sons and brothers and friends and people you work with.
Yeah.
We're not going to get anywhere on this. It's still that kind of separation and saying, well, and parsing it. And look, part of it is he got caught. If he doesn't, if this tree falls in a different forest, we're not talking about it, right?
Right.
But once it's out there and it's on the public record, and everybody knows what he said, and everybody understands how that word, that pejorative is used, or that word is used as a pejorative.
Right.
Let's you know, don't kind of shuffle it off to the side. They didn't need to do that. As I say, I'm not. It's not like he stood up there and pointed to someone identifiable and said, "I'm going to use this because I'm identifying you in any
right.
way as the other." But that's the weight that word carries. And in the same in Pilar's case, that the word carries weight, it carries history, and you have to address it. Maybe 20 years ago you wouldn't have had to do that, but now you do. And that's
right.
a good thing.
There's I don't know if there's two sides to this, at least in my mind. I don't think there's two sides to this. The one thing that I kept getting in this chair on Thursday was, I hear bleepity bleep 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 at a game. Why can't I hear bleep at a game? And I think that you addressed it in the some words have weight, and people need to understand the weight that their words bring to certain people, and maybe even all people if they can allow themselves to get to that point. But do we need to produce a list of the unspeakables? Because, and I'm dead serious, I had very intelligent people come up to me and say, I didn't realize that that would be a homophobic slur, and then had to explain why that might be a homophobic slur to someone or some person. And I always say, like, if there was someone of a certain race or a certain community in the room, would you say those words and have complete confidence in saying those words? And I think there are certain people out there that don't know. And whether that's ignorance or explained ignorance, or I'm trying to explain ignorance, I'm not. But do we need to give the list of unspeakables so that people aren't put in this spot?
You know, it's right. Like, I think of George Carlin, right? The 7 words you can't say on television, who kind of pointed out the absurdity that certain words were considered obscene and certain words are not considered obscene.
And I think there's a section of the population right now that are trying to point to that and say that this is absurd.
It's not absurd because it's different. Those words, you know, some which come from, you know, good Anglo-Saxon origins and have, you know, different histories, you know, have, whether we consider those words obscene or words you can use after 10 o'clock on TV or words you can use in an R-rated movie and not in a PG-rated movie, those are standards which move around, you know, societally and over time, and have moved around over time.
Right, and there's plenty of people on the wrong side of history on a lot of those words.
But they're neutral. right? Those words are neutral.
Oh, those ones, the Carlin ones, yes.
Yeah, they're neutral. They're not. It's kind of arbitrary that we consider those words obscene,
Right.
where we consider other words not obscene.
Right.
Words that are directed at a specific group of people to identify them and mock them
Right.
are different. Those are not neutral. And that's not arbitrary. It's specific, and that's the problem. Right. You know, these are specific words that are used in a specific way. And you can say he used it non-specifically there. He just used it as an epithet because he was mad at somebody in the heat of the moment. But you can't take away the meaning of the word.
Right.
You can't separate the word from its meaning. Just any more than you could if you wrote that word.
So how in 2017 then can we look at an Andrew Shaw one-game suspension in a playoffs for one word and say that Getzlaf gets the pass on another word especially when Canada was abuzz with Kevin Pillar on the same day?
Yeah, I don't know. And if I'm the NHL, look, honestly, I don't want to be the people saying, well, this one's okay, but this one's not okay, and trying to debate the difference between how those words were used. If I'm the NHL, I would, err on the side of the Angels here, right? Why not be your better self and say, okay, we're going to try, because look,
because there'd be a huge pushback if Ryan Getzlaf was suspended for a game in an important Game 5.
Yeah, I guess. So is that what it's about? I guess. I don't know.
That's the only thing that I can think of.
I guess that's what it's about. But then we're into that's a whole other debate about whether you start kind of drawing your lines and establishing your rules based on what time of year it is and what game it is.
Well, but then I think that's already occurring. How could we have only seen suspensions in stuff that we've seen on camera? So these words aren't spoke, like no official has ever heard a player utter this word without a camera catching it?
Well, of course.
Or these words?
Yeah, they've all been. Everybody's heard these words. And
so how could an official not just write in an incident report that this word was used? It's only when we catch it on camera. And the leagues want us to believe, and they're paying customers to believe who would be seriously offended by this, that we value your money, we value your patronage, we value you, and yet never have we seen it done without a camera affixed on the person who did it.
Yeah, no, the getting caught has always been part of it, hasn't it? No one's gotten out in front and said, we're going to make sure this doesn't happen whether you hear it or see it or don't.
Right. And that to me is a bit of hypocrisy in it, because there's no way that any of these words aren't being uttered when there's not a camera there.
Yeah, it's true. Look, getting caught is always part of the equation in many aspects of life and society, right? Getting caught is different than not getting caught.
But an official can catch you.
Yes, they could. And you could decide to do that, and you could decide to police it, absolutely, and decide to have zero tolerance for that.
Right. And that hasn't happened yet.
No, but even if they're purely in self-protection mode at this stage, if it's cynical self-protection mode, this would seem to be the wrong way to go. I would be wanting I say in a sport that has had issues with inclusiveness. All sports have had issues with inclusiveness. It's not just hockey, but if you think that inclusiveness is important, that you are trying to drop barriers, to make barriers go away, to welcome everyone in, to not say you're not welcome in this sport, you're not welcome in this dressing room, then I would think you would err on that side rather than kind of circle the wagons and go hum and hope this goes away. And look, it has kind of gone away, to be honest.
Yeah, it did.
It did. Pillar wasn't going away. But this has kind of gone away. We're talking about the hockey, and we're going to, we'll see how Getzlaf plays. That's the conversation right now.
For me, actions always speak louder than words, and it's the action of actually doing something about it as opposed to just saying you're going to do something about it.